The early labor movement, sacrifice, struggle, and the fight for workers' rights. At the turn of the 20th century, America was on the rise, fueled by industrialization, innovation, and a growing workforce. But behind the glimmer of progress lay a harsh reality: brutal working conditions, exploitative wages, and a system stacked against workers. Today, we'll journey back to the early days of the labor movement, when men and women risked everything to demand fairness, dignity, and justice. This is a story of courage, sacrifice, and a fight that shaped the very foundation of workers' rights. Part 1. The birth of the labor movement. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, America's industrial boom created vast wealth, but only for a few. Workers toiled long hours in dangerous factories, mines, and railroads, often for wages that barely covered the cost of living. Out of these conditions, the labor movement was born. Workers began organizing, forming unions, and striking for basic rights: fair pay, safer workplaces, and the ability to collectively bargain. The fight wasn't just for themselves, it was for future generations. Part 2. The opposition: Pinkerton, police, and federal forces. But their fight was met with fierce resistance. Industrialists and corporations viewed unions as a threat to their profits and control. To suppress strikes and break unions, they called in the enforcers: local police, private security forces like the Pinkerton Detective Agency, and even federal troops. The Pinkertons became infamous for their role in union busting. Hired by employers, they infiltrated unions, intimidated workers, and acted as strike breakers. Their violent tactics came to symbolize the brutal lengths companies would go to maintain control. Part 3. Notable strikes and clashes. Some of the most pivotal moments in labor history were defined by these confrontations. 1. The Homestead Strike, 1892. At Carnegie Steel in Pennsylvania, Pinkerton agents clashed with striking steelworkers, leading to a bloody battle that left several dead. The strike was crushed, but the event galvanized the labor movement. 2. The Pullman Strike, 1894. When railway workers protested wage cuts, federal troops were deployed, resulting in violent clashes and dozens of deaths. The strike highlighted the government's willingness to side with industry over workers. 3. The Ludlow Massacre, 1914. Coal miners in Colorado went on strike for better wages and conditions. The Colorado National Guard, called in by mine owners, attacked a tent colony of striking workers and their families, killing women and children. These events exposed the brutal reality of labor struggles and the high cost of challenging the system. Part 4. The strength of the movement. Despite the violence and repression, the labor movement persisted. It was the sacrifices of those early unionists that eventually led to groundbreaking reforms: the 8-hour workday, minimum wage laws, child labor protections, workplace safety regulations. These victories came at a heavy price, paid by those who dedicated their lives to the cause of labor rights. Part 5. Lessons for Today. While the labor movement achieved monumental victories, its strength has waned over time. Corruption, bureaucracy, and external challenges have weakened unions, leaving workers vulnerable once again. But the lessons of the past remain clear. When workers stand together, they can challenge even the most powerful forces. The early labor movement reminds us that progress requires sacrifice, and the fight for fairness is never over. In conclusion, the early labor movement wasn't just about better wages or shorter hours. It was about dignity, justice, and the belief that every worker deserves respect. Today, as we face new challenges in the workplace, let us remember the sacrifices of those who came before us. Their courage paved the way for the rights we enjoy today, and their fight reminds us that real change is possible, but only if we're willing to stand together.